we seem to have some real predicaments on our hands. And to me, they really do feel as though they've been accelerated in the last 100 days from the deteriorating relations with Russia and its expansionist tendencies with Iran and its funding of terrorist actions and North Korea access to nuclear missiles and long-range missiles. Is there one of those examples where you would say, no, this one rises above all the rest. If we can't fix this, we have a huge problem on our hands?
Yes. Let me say first that President Trump has an outstanding national security team. Right? Rex Tillerson is a really fine Secretary of State. Some of us who wanted to see him become Secretary of State kind of understood that the president needed a different kind of Secretary of State. He needed a business peer. The oil men know the world like nobody else. They have to they have to deal with long tail investments in difficult places, deal with difficult people. Their people work in troubling circumstances. Sort of sounds like being Secretary of State. Jim Mattis is one of the best commanders of his generation. H.R. McMaster, the same. So it's an excellent team. But any national security team would struggle with the North Korean problem. And I think it's the single most dangerous problem that we've got. I was the Secretary of State who tried to negotiate with the North Koreans to get them to give up their nuclear weapons. That was Kim Jong-il, the father. He lived in a parallel universe, but it was a bounded parallel universe. I think Junior is unhinged. And I think he is living in, when he says things like, I can destroy the United States, I hope he doesn't really believe that, right? Mm-hmm. He's also reckless. Anybody who will reach into Malaysia to kill his half-brother with VX gas, and by all reports, his half-brother was under Chinese protection. So he's reckless, he's probably a little unhinged, and they've made a lot of progress in the last several years on their nuclear programs. You see, a nuclear weapon, usable nuclear weapon, you have to have three elements. You have to have fuel, and they've been harvesting plutonium and uranium for some time. Then you have to have a bomb design. Now, when people tell you that it's easy to make a nuclear weapon, it actually isn't easy to make a nuclear weapon. The bomb design has to hold the material in critical mass until the moment when you want to hit it and explode it. So when you read in the newspapers that the North Korean tests, that they're not getting very good yield, that means it's exploding prematurely. But they're getting better at it, and they're working at it, and pretty soon they're going to get to the place that they can explode it when they want to. Then they can affix it to the third element, which is a delivery vehicle. What's worrying people is that their delivery vehicles are getting longer in range. And I don't know whether President Trump is being told it's 1 year or 3 years or 5 years. My guess it's someplace 3 to 5 years. He's going to be able to marry that weapon to an intercontinental ballistic missile that can reach the United States. Now, no president of the United States is going to let a reckless, unhinged North Korean leader be able to reach the United States with a nuclear weapon. So what do you do about it? Well, the only country that actually has influence with the North Koreans is probably China. But the Chinese have always been more fearful of the collapse of the regime than of a nuclear regime. So they've refused to tighten the screws on the North Koreans, and they could do a lot. They could close the border, they could deny them fuel oil. The Chinese could really hurt the regime. The Chinese have to be convinced that they now have to do whatever it takes to stop this regime. And when you hear the administration say, if you won't deal with the North Koreans, we will, that's the message that they're sending. Now, the we will is kind of ugly. Because if you want to look at military options, you're looking at Seoul, which is very vulnerable and very close to the border, to the demilitarized zone. The North Koreans could do a lot of damage, a lot of civilian casualties very quickly in Seoul. So the options are not very good. It's complicated by the new president in South Korea, who is a man of the left, who has said we ought to be negotiating with the North Koreans. Trust me, I tried that. They walked away. And we are going to have to try to find a way to protect South Korea, protect Japan, because again, no president can let the North Koreans be able to reach the United States with a nuclear weapon. Now, one good thing here, the Russians that we have so many troubles on other things, if a long-range missile can reach Alaska, it can reach Vladivostok. And so this may be a place where we can get some cooperation with the Russians.